Most people think aging starts in the mirror. They look for wrinkles, gray hair, changes in the skin, a little more puffiness, a little less tightness, and yes, those things are real, but one of the most important changes in aging is happening somewhere you can't see at all. It's happening inside your blood vessels, and this matters more than most people realize, because your blood vessels are not just passive tubes carrying blood from one place to another. They are active, responsive, intelligent tissues that help regulate energy, focus, recovery, circulation, metabolism, and even how well your organs can do their job from one moment to the next. So if you've been feeling more tired than you used to, if your workouts leave you wiped out for longer, if your brain feels slower, if your hands and feet feel colder, if your blood pressure has been creeping up, or if you just don't feel as resilient as you used to, one of the missing pieces may be this: your body may not be making enough nitric oxide, and once nitric oxide starts to fall, inflammation often starts to rise. That combination is a problem, because nitric oxide is one of the most important molecules for healthy aging. It helps your blood vessels relax. It helps blood flow where it needs to go, it lowers stress on the arterial wall, it supports oxygen delivery, it helps protect the lining of the blood vessels, and when you don't have enough of it, your circulation becomes more rigid, more inflamed, and less responsive. That is when aging starts to feel older. Now here's the good news: you are not helpless here. In fact, one of the most exciting things we now understand is that nitric oxide is highly responsive to how you live, how you eat, how you move, how you sleep, and even how you care for the bacteria in your mouth. That means you can support it, you can boost it. And in many cases you can help reverse some of the biological wear and tear that makes aging feel faster than it should. So what exactly is nitric oxide? Why does it drop? And what can you actually do to get more of it naturally? Let's break it down. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule your body makes every single day. Think of it as a messenger. Its job is to tell your blood vessels to relax and widen. That widening improves circulation, lowers resistance, and reduces pressure in the system. In other words, it makes blood flow easier. And the main place a lot of this happens is in the endothelium. The endothelium is the ultra-thin layer of cells lining the inside of your blood vessels. You can think of it like the protective living interface between your blood and the vessel wall. When the endothelium is healthy, it helps produce nitric oxide efficiently. When it's damaged, inflamed, or stressed, nitric oxide production drops. Now this is where aging enters the picture. As we get older, oxidative stress rises, inflammation tends to rise, the endothelial lining becomes more vulnerable, the enzymes involved in nitric oxide production do not work as well. And over time your body may produce less nitric oxide, while also destroying more of the nitric oxide it does make. That's a double hit: less production, more breakdown, and when that happens, blood vessels become less flexible, they don't open up as well, they don't respond as quickly. Blood pressure can rise, tissue perfusion can fall, and your brain, muscles, heart and organs all feel the consequences. That's why nitric oxide is not just a heart health topic, it's an aging topic, it's an energy topic, it's a recovery topic, it's a brain topic. It's a whole body resilience topic. Now, if you're thinking, okay, so how do I get more of it? This is where it gets very interesting, because your body can make nitric oxide through more than one pathway. One pathway depends on your endothelial cells and certain nutrients and enzymes. Another pathway depends on nitrate-rich foods and the helpful bacteria in your mouth that convert those dietary compounds into nitric oxide-related molecules your body can use. That means food matters a lot. And when you start eating with nitric oxide in mind, you stop thinking only in terms of calories, carbs, fat, or protein. You start asking a more powerful question: what is this food teaching my blood vessels to do? That shift changes everything. So let's talk about some of the most effective ways to naturally boost nitric oxide and calm the inflammation that accelerates aging. The first one is beets. Beets are one of the best known foods for nitric oxide support because they're naturally rich in dietary nitrates. These nitrates are not the same thing people worry about in heavily processed meats. In vegetables, nitrates come packaged with antioxidants and phytonutrients, and that makes a big difference. When you eat beets, the nitrate compounds meet bacteria in your mouth. Those bacteria begin converting nitrate into nitrite. Then, once swallowed and absorbed, your body can further convert that into nitric oxide. That means the process starts in your mouth, and that's important. Because if you're constantly using harsh antiseptic mouthwashes, especially the stronger kinds, you may be disrupting some of the very bacteria that help this system work. Your mouth is not just the place where digestion begins, it is also part of your nitric oxide machinery. Now, what does nitric oxide from beets actually do for you? It helps your arteries relax. It can support healthier blood pressure. It may improve exercise performance because better blood flow means better oxygen delivery. And for aging adults, that matters because the difference between feeling drained and feeling capable often comes down to how efficiently oxygen and nutrients reach your tissues. A practical amount, about 1 cup of roasted beets or a serving of beet juice, is a very reasonable place to start. The second nitric oxide booster is leafy greens, especially arugula, spinach, romaine, Swiss chard, and other nitrate-rich greens. A lot of people think of greens in terms of fiber or vitamins, and that's true, but many of them also act as nitric oxide foods. Just like beets, they provide natural nitrates your body can use, and because you can eat them more often than beets, they become one of the easiest daily strategies for vascular support. Here's why I love this category so much. It's simple. A salad is not just a salad anymore. A handful of arugula is not just garnish. A bowl of sautéed greens is not just a side dish. These are tools for your circulation. These are foods that can help your blood vessels stay supple instead of stiff. And when blood vessels stay more supple, inflammation tends to have less opportunity to dig in and cause damage. Third, let's talk about dark chocolate. Yes, really. Dark chocolate starts with cacao, and cacao contains powerful flavonols that have been studied for their effects on endothelial function. These compounds can help support nitric oxide availability, improve vascular responsiveness, and lower some of the oxidative stress that interferes with healthy circulation. This is one of those rare moments in nutrition where the science and real life actually get along pretty well. Because people are pleasantly surprised to learn they don't always have to add something miserable to their routine. Sometimes the helpful thing is something they already enjoy, they just need a better version of it. The key here is dark chocolate, not candy masquerading as chocolate. You want higher cacao content and lower sugar. The deeper and more bitter the chocolate tastes, generally speaking, the more you are moving toward the compounds that actually matter. Now, does this mean the more chocolate you eat, the better? No. That's not how this works. This is not a license to eat half a dessert tray and call it vascular medicine. A small amount can go a long way. A couple of squares of high-quality dark chocolate is often enough to make this a strategic habit rather than a sugar habit. The fourth food is pomegranate. Pomegranate is rich in polyphenols that help protect nitric oxide from being destroyed by oxidative stress, and that matters because one of the biggest problems in aging is not just reduced nitric oxide production. It is also that the nitric oxide you do make can get quenched, neutralized, or broken down by inflammatory and oxidative processes, so pomegranate works like a protector. It helps create a friendlier environment for nitric oxide to do its job. This is especially important if someone is under chronic stress, dealing with metabolic dysfunction, eating a highly processed diet, or carrying extra visceral fat, because all of those conditions tend to create a more inflammatory internal environment. Pomegranate, in that sense, is not magic. But it is supportive. It is one more way of tipping the system back toward repair and away from damage. The fifth nitric oxide supporting food is watermelon. Watermelon contains citrulline, an amino acid your body can convert into arginine, which is then used to help generate nitric oxide. This is a different route from the nitrate-rich vegetable pathway, and that's one of the reasons it's helpful to think in patterns instead of isolated superfoods. Different foods can support nitric oxide from different angles. Some supply nitrates, some protect the endothelium. Some reduce oxidative stress, some support the raw materials your body uses to make nitric oxide in the first place. Watermelon is especially interesting because a lot of people think of it as just sweet summer fruit, but underneath that refreshing taste is a compound that can be useful for circulation and performance. Now I want you to notice something. We're not talking about exotic ingredients, we're not talking about expensive biohacking powders from a secret lab on the internet, we're talking about common foods with uncommon effects when used consistently. That is the real story in healthy aging. Not perfection, consistency. Now let me give you another major lever, and this one is not food, it's exercise. If you want to boost nitric oxide, you have to move, because your arteries are incredibly responsive to movement. When blood flows more forcefully across the lining of your blood vessels during exercise, it creates what's called shear stress, and that mechanical signal tells the endothelium to produce more nitric oxide. In plain English, movement teaches your blood vessels to behave younger. This is one of the reasons regular walking, interval training, cycling, swimming, resistance work, and even brisk stair climbing can have such profound effects on vascular health. It's not only burning calories, it's not only helping weight control, it's literally training the endothelium. And if you've been sedentary for years, the good news is that blood vessels can respond surprisingly fast when you begin again. You do not need to become an elite athlete, you need consistency. Even daily walking after meals can help. Next comes breathing and sleep. People underestimate how destructive poor sleep is to nitric oxide biology. Chronic short sleep raises stress hormones, increases inflammation, worsens blood pressure, and can impair endothelial function. If you are sleeping 5 hours a night, waking up wired, running on caffeine, and wondering why you feel inflamed and old, your body is giving you the answer. Sleep is when repair happens. Sleep is when inflammation gets regulated. Sleep is when the body shifts out of emergency mode. And if you are snoring heavily or dealing with sleep apnea, that deserves attention because disrupted oxygen patterns during sleep can place major strain on the vascular system. Now let's talk about something else that quietly destroys nitric oxide: smoking. Smoking damages the endothelium, increases oxidative stress, stiffens arteries, and burns through nitric oxide availability. If someone is looking for the fastest route to vascular aging, smoking is unfortunately one of the most efficient ways to get there. The opposite is also true. When smoking stops, the vascular system begins to recover. Again, not overnight, but recovery is possible, and that is a theme I really want you to remember. Your body wants to repair, it is trying to repair. You just have to remove some of what's getting in the way and supply more of what supports the repair process. Now, one more critical point: you cannot out-supplement a bad lifestyle. There are people who want nitric oxide support in a capsule while living on ultra-processed food, sleeping poorly, never moving, carrying constant stress, and ignoring blood pressure, blood sugar, and oral health. That approach almost never works well. Nitric oxide is not a single switch. It is a network. It responds to the total environment inside your body. So if you want the biggest benefit, combine the habits: eat nitrate-rich vegetables, add polyphenol-rich foods, walk every day, strength train a few times a week, protect sleep, manage blood sugar, reduce smoking and excess alcohol, support the mouth microbiome instead of sterilizing it every hour. That is how the system starts to shift. And when the system shifts, people often notice the same pattern. They feel warmer, they feel clearer, they feel less heavy. Their exercise feels better, their recovery improves, their blood pressure starts behaving a little more politely. They don't feel 20 again, but they do feel more alive, and that matters. Now, I also want to be careful here. If you have cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, low blood pressure, are taking prescription nitrates, or have any significant medical condition, you should work with your physician before making major dietary or supplement changes. Natural does not mean irrelevant. Food is powerful precisely because biology responds to it, but for most people, nitric oxide support begins with something refreshingly basic: real food, daily movement, better sleep, less inflammation, more blood flow. That's the formula. I'm Dr. Marie Clark, and if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that aging is not only about the passage of time, it's about how well your body can still adapt, repair, respond, and circulate, and nitric oxide sits right in the middle of that story. When nitric oxide falls, blood vessels stiffen, inflammation rises, and aging feels faster. When nitric oxide improves, circulation improves, the endothelium gets support, tissues receive better delivery, and the body becomes more resilient. So if you want to age better, don't focus only on what you can see in the mirror, pay attention to the highway system inside you. Because your blood vessels are helping determine how your brain works, how your muscles recover, how your heart performs, how your organs are nourished, and how much vitality you bring into each day. That's why boosting nitric oxide is not a trend, it's not hype, it's not just another health buzzword, it's one of the most practical and biologically meaningful ways to support healthy aging from the inside out. Start simple, add the beets, add the greens, choose the dark chocolate, bring in the pomegranate, use watermelon strategically. Move your body every day, protect your sleep, and remember that small actions repeated consistently can change the trajectory of how aging feels. That is the part people miss. You do not need one miracle. You need the right signals, repeated often enough, for your body to remember what health feels like, and when that begins to happen, inflammation does not get the final word, fatigue does not get the final word, vascular stiffness does not get the final word. Your biology is listening. The question is, what are you telling it every day?